Dubai didn't even have an airport when he landed. Those days there was nothing. Yemen was the big port in the region. So in 1976, he sent my uncle and said, you know what, start in Dubai because this place has a vision.
With a population of 3.9 million, Dubai is home to Ajmal Perfumes, a rice farmer by trade located in a little village in Assam, India. Haji Ajmal Ali was searching for precious oud from the agarwood tree to change his family's fortunes and the face of perfumery.
And he said, well, if you don't like it, throw the goods into the sea and come and take the money back. That was the confidence he had in the work that he did.
Today, we have a very special guest on the Bricks to Richard podcast. We have Mr. Abdullah Ajmal, who's a huge ambassador of Oudh in the Middle East and the world. This family business has been running the Oudh business from his grandparents' time for the last 70 years.
We'll be 75 next year, inshallah.
Can you give me some background about your business, how you started Abdullah Bhai? How did this all happen? Because I understand you started from India.
Yeah.
And you started over 75 years ago, was it, in India?
Well, unofficially, yes, but we registered, let's say, in 1951.
Wow.
As a business, yeah.
And then how did your elders get into this business? What happened?
So, to be honest, it was need rather than an ambition for business. My grandfather, he came from family farmers. So he realized while he was still quite young, having a big family, farming was not a sustainable source of income. Because unlike today, the technology was very limited at that time, right? So he looked into various things. Being a farmer, obvious first thing was, and we come from the northeast in Assam, which is predominantly where rice growing region. So he looked into that, found there was a lot of adulteration, corruption, so he didn't want to follow that. Very pious, very honest man. And then somebody introduced him to a commodity called Oudh, which was literally in the backyard. So in India, Oudh only grows in our region, so the northeast. And that's when he realized, okay, what is this? This is a commodity that the Arabs buy to burn as an incense. So he started then going to the jungles and getting the trees cut and getting them polished, etc. It takes a long time to learn the trade because it's not like something you can just go to a business school and learn and get out. It's very apprentice kind of based. That's how it kind of started. Then there was middlemen who used to come to Bombay at the time, today Mumbai. And at that time, Saudis and Kuwaitis used to be the one who would trade either in fragrances or textiles or spices, predominantly from Bombay. And that's how it all kind of started. Then first he was doing the business through middlemen. So being an entrepreneur, you realize, as many middlemen we can reduce, obviously that's better for me. So then first he moved to Bombay, then, the relationships fostered with the customers directly. Then he moved the family, then he started coming to the GCC. And it was in those trips where he had met with the late Sheikh Zayed, late Sheikh Rashid. He was very impressed with their visions. And so in 1976, he sent my uncle and said, you know what, I think we should really start in Dubai because this place has a vision. I get a feel for the place. Those days there was nothing, to be honest. Dubai didn't even have an airport when he landed here. Can you believe that?
He was ahead of the time. The vision, he had a phenomenal, he jumped right, piggybacked on the right at that time.
Absolutely.
He was ahead of the time, as I say.
Well, one was that, to be honest, but it was also ahead of the time by following the vision of the late Sheikh Rashid. Because there was nothing at the time. There was the souk and there was Pardabai. And he used to, the late Sheikh Rashid used to have these majlises, open majlis near the creek. And he used to talk about trade center, he used to talk about a big port. At that time, Yemen was the big port in the region. He used to talk that this is what I see Dubai as being. So he obviously believed in that vision And that was the reason why my uncle was sent sort of and opened the first store in the souk, in Souk Murshid in Dubai, yeah.
Nice. So it's good to see that you followed the dynasty, the family business. And I came today when I arrived. You have a huge operation in Dubai. This factory here where we're sat recording this podcast is massive. You have an operation in downtown. You have how many units you have here?
So in total, we've got about 300 plus units,
Yes.
stores of our own. We don't do franchises till now. And in UAE, we are at 57 stores.
Okay, and the other remaining 247?
Around the GCC.
Right.
We have now growing markets in India, in Thailand, and inshallah now we're going to open stores in other countries, including some of the European countries as well.
And this podcast will help you get into Europe.
Well, I hope so.
That's good.
Inshallah. One of the main motivations for my grandfather doing business was not only taking care of his kids at the time, it was also to do something for the community, not just Muslims, people, as in, because the village at the time we came from was very, very remote. And there was bullock carts at the time. So we used to have as high as 40% mortality for women giving birth. Because, you know, by the time they take the woman on a bullock cart to somewhere close, it was always the midwives that, you know, used to come and everything. And you think it's only 70 years ago, but yeah, it was quite remote. And in that sense, yes, you can use the word backward. So it started on the basis of that. You know, Islam talks about taking care of your neighbor, of your community. It doesn't matter. Religion has never mattered for us. And just to
hadith in Islam that when you go to sleep, you have to check 7 sides of each neighbor.
Absolutely, yeah.
They went to sleep full or hungry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it also goes to show the secularism by the fact that in '94 so his vision was to do healthcare particularly for women. And even when he didn't have 10,000 rupees to put together, he had the vision to do a clinic and then a hospital. Our hospital was opened by Mother Teresa in '94. Yeah, that was one of the hospitals. Now, alhamdulillah, our foundation is very, very big.
And Mother Teresa was a great ambassador to show that to be kind, you don't have to be any religion.
Absolutely.
Be kind to everybody, irrespective of their background or religion.
Absolutely. So in our, and again, coming back to your question, you know, how does religion play into our thing? So my grandmother was also a driving force in the success of our business, not necessarily going to the office, but giving the kind of advice. She was a very wise woman. Never really spoke in terms of the business lingo. Like my grandfather never used the term brand. He didn't know what a brand was. But he would say things like, you know, my uncle and my father would complain that, you know, people are making money and you're getting us to fill Denelud and these little tiny bottles with the labeling and all that. And he said, in 40 years, people will look for this label and come to you. That's branding, right? He wouldn't turn that way.
Your grandfather seemed like a very good visionary.
He was a very astute businessman, very deep person, very thoughtful. And as I was saying about my grandmother, when granddad used to give her 500 rupees, she instinctively, there was no calculation, instinctively put 50 rupees away.
Sadqa.
Exactly. She used to say, this is for my children that don't have anything.
Yes.
And then it automatically became 500 rupees when he used to give her 5,000. So then when dad and uncles grew up and everything, they realized that instinctively she was actually putting away 10% for sadaqah. So now we've made it into a family mandate. We've got something called a family governance, right? And it's a legal document. Everybody has to follow it. And one of the parts of it, one of the clauses, is that after the zakat and all of that in our P&L, there is out of our profit, there is a 10% because of the practice that my grandmother started, goes to sadaqah. And that is just...
Sadaqah, for the people who don't know, is charity. Sadaqah is an Arabic term when you give money to the needy. Just explain it to the English
Absolutely,
people.
Yeah. So the charity goes, and that's how it is. Our foundation started in Assam. Now I would say 50% of it is part of our what we are able to contribute. Rest are there is a lot of benefactors. There's a lot of benefactors from the UK who have donated. They come, they visit as well. We make sure that they are kept updated about
Is this for
how
the
we do.
hospital that you've got that back?
No, not just hospital. We've got education. We've got multiple colleges, schools, orphanages. So it's a very large operation by itself.
Wow.
And we've got the one very large hospital. Apart from that, we've got 3 more smaller, what we call satellite hospitals around the region.
So it's commendable the money that you make. You have a multi-million-pound business. You're the biggest oud supplier in the Middle East.
Yep.
You
In the world.
In the world.
Sorry, I had to correct that.
In the world.
In the world.
In the world. Oud supplier in the world. So from that money, you basically help the needy. And I'm a strong believer that when you spend in God's way, God gives you more.
Absolutely.
And Ramadan's approaching, it's not far. If you give in God's way, normally you get 7 times more. And this in Ramadan, you get 70 times more.
Absolutely.
So that's the secret to give.
Absolutely. And then, in fact, the hadith is that 70 times more, but there is no end.
Yes.
Could be endless. And just to end that, if, like every other organization, we've got our vision, the mission, etc. I'm not sure how many people would remember that, to be honest. But if you called the T-boy and asked him, what is the one thing that is very close to everybody's heart, especially the Ajmal family, and what is the thing that really drives them more than anything else, more than the success, more than name, money, etc., is charity. Because we believe that is what is really keeping us afloat. I don't think that we are any more brilliant than there are extremely intelligent people out there. But I think it's the prayers of people that we've helped, is the prayers of our elders that are really helping us grow. As you mentioned, Oudh was something we started with. But today we're an end-to-end fragrance manufacturer. We're the only, in my knowledge, I have to be honest, we're the only farm-to-fragrance brand. As in, we have our own raw material business. So we not only do oud, we do many other raw materials as well that we supply to some of the top houses in the world. We then have a manufacturing where we are seated at the moment. We have our own retail. We have distribution in 50 countries, actually 50 plus, give and take. So alhamdulillah, we go all the way from the top to the bottom, so we go to the consumer as well.
And also, Abdullah Bhai, one thing I've learned as well in my experience is that when you do something, do it with integrity, honesty.
Yep.
Because if you want to do something with integrity, honesty, then God blesses it more. Like obviously, some countries, third world countries, are corrupt. And when you see the corrupt at ground level, they don't exceed. One thing I learned from the West, from England, where I'm from, people are a lot more honorable, even though they might not be Muslim. They do business with integrity. Integrity is very important. Yep. Do you agree with that? That's what Islam teaches us.
Well, that is the only way, to be honest. I mean, do corrupt people grow? Of course they do. I mean, we see it around the world. But you have a choice. And, the lessons that I've learned from my grandfather's practices, my father, my uncles, we still continue. I remember my grandfather used to say, look, don't ever compromise on the product. My customer is willing to pay more because they know. That was the confidence he had in the work that he did. And that's what he has inculcated in all our family. So the values are what make us really grow.
Yes.
Could we have been much bigger? Of course we could have. We would have increased the margins. We would have done things that a lot of brands, I don't say a lot of brands do that, but we went by the rules, the Islamic principles, not just Islamic principles. There are millions and millions and millions of non-Muslims who are working in the same manner, which is honesty, honor, being honest with your customer, giving him the best value, best quality. Do we charge? Are we a premium brand? Yes, we are. and we are very proud of that. But there's a reason for it as well. And that's what keeps us growing, I believe.
Now, Abdullah Bhai, it's phenomenal to see a family business that started from a small village in India now is the biggest oud supplier in the world. You have you have hundreds of thousands of employees. How many employees do you have?
So now we've got, no, it's not hundreds of thousands someday, because our business doesn't require that kind of
How many employees
number.
do you have?
So around, we would have over 2,000 all over. Having said that, like I said, you know, the kind of business we're in, you don't necessarily, like if we were into construction, for example, I mean, you're a real estate guy, you would know that, then you would have hundreds of thousands of people. You need that. We don't. We predominantly, when we need the larger numbers, they're going to be either in labor or in sales. The rest is you know, fairly tight.
And all the manufacturing happens in the UAE, in Dubai?
At the moment, we are also giving a little bit of manufacturing now in Paris as well, because, you know, I mean, made in Paris does have a slightly, I would say it still carries that edge. Having said that, made in Dubai is coming very, very close to it over the last few years, particularly. But yes, to answer your question, everything we manufacture predominantly is here. And partly in India as well.
The Paris production must be a lot dearer.
It is dearer, but it's also very small. It's very small, so it goes to certain countries. It doesn't come here. We don't sell anything that is manufactured in Paris. We don't need that because, alhamdulillah, we have a very good image. We have a good reputation in the region and outside. So made in Dubai is very, very acceptable. Frankly speaking, made in Paris is more of a marketing thing right now. Not like before. Before, yes, I would say 20 years ago, made in Paris and made in Dubai was a huge difference. Today, if you look at the technology, the methods, the raw materials, everything, it's absolutely the same, and in some cases, even better.
So now also, there's lots of like Western perfume brands.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when it's my birthday, I get loads of gifts. Tom Ford Oud, Chanel Oud. Have you ever considered collaboration with these big organizations like Tom Ford and say that Ajmal Ouds that you can supply for them, or even make the perfume for them, bottle it for them to sell? Have you ever done that collaboration with them?
No, we've not. We do supply to many houses who create for them. So nobody creates their own perfumes. The luxury, or let's call it the fashion brands, right? They've got the houses that create, master perfumers, senior perfumers who create the fragrances. So we supply to them, which does end up many a times in the references that you mentioned. Having said that, till now, at least, I mean, yes, the trend is growing. Oud has now become a marketing nomenclature.
Yes.
Frankly, I think 90% of brands that claim it don't actually have it, right? But that is changing. Now the consumer wants to know that if there is real oud in it or not. Why they don't include it? One is it is an expensive raw material.
Yes.
Also, although the top end, the luxury brands can afford it, but the problem with oud is that it is extremely overpowering. So perfumers are still getting themselves around to how to utilize, how to come up with the kind of notes, because the West is still, you know, about lighter fragrances, not as strong. I mean, anybody who's been to the GCC, been to Dubai, you smell it in elevators, you smell this waft of what we call sillage on Arabic women and men and stuff like that. So we're responsible for that. But it's changing dramatically all over the West. I'm sure you receive gifts, as you mentioned, with some sort of reference of oud.
Yes.
Will they actually have oud? Maybe, maybe not. It depends. But there will be one thing. They will have that personality. Yeah, they will be stronger, darker, as we describe it, longer lasting in many ways as well. They perform better.
Yes.
But their bloom, as in the amount of spread, is also much higher. So what they nowadays the influencers call it beast mode.
Yes.
Yeah, so our region is responsible for the beast mode.
So you touched on influencers. A lot of the marketing, like your grandfather's time, marketing was completely different.
Yep.
Now today's modern world, a lot of marketing is done by social media.
Yep.
So when you market your products, do you use social media influencers, or how do you sell?
So we have a combination of traditional advertising and marketing, which has been there for years. And I think advertising is called the second oldest business in the world.
Yes.
So we do that. As you are here,
Yeah.
when you're going around the city, you'll see our latest launch, The Untold Stories,
Yes.
is everywhere, plastered everywhere. So we've got the combination of the traditional marketing, so that, PR. Yesterday, when you saw the cricket match, I'm sure you
Yeah.
must have seen our ads as well on
Yes.
that. And of course, now influencers. So we had about 200 influencers from around the world flown in who were here for the launch on the 8th of February.
Oh, right.
We had a great, it was an amazing, never done before launch in this part of the world.
Yes.
We plastered Burj Al Arab with, Burj Khalifa.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Burj Al Arab, Burj Khalifa with the products, and we did a drone show, etc. It was really, really grand.
Because that's the future, digital marketing, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. You can't get away from it. So you'll find a lot of influencers from the US. We're now doing more and more in UK as well. You'll see a presence of our reviewers and influencers in different parts of the world who will be reviewing our brands more and more than the past, to be honest.
Right.
Because yes, like you said, this is the way to go for the future.
Yes. Digital, like our children, the next generation,
Oh,
everything's
yeah,
going to
yeah.
go digital.
Yeah, but we're very strong on Insta. We do a lot of films on YouTube, etc. But now we're going to do even more. We're going to put a lot more focus on. So we've always been a very sales-driven organization. I understand everybody is all about the sales, but when you're predominantly sales-driven, you focus everything on what the salespeople say, what everybody does, etc. You're not focusing so much on the brand. Now we're taking a shift where we are going to be focusing a lot more on the brand, because products don't last, brands do.
Yes.
So the longevity, you need to market your brand. And I'm very proud to say that since I've become CEO, we are now looking at a transformation. So we sit here, talk today, and inshallah in 5 years' time, when you look at Ajmal, I'm fairly confident that you will see a very different face of it.
And then we'll do another podcast in 5 years.
Well, we can do it every year if
Yeah.
you'll have me.
Yeah, of course, you're a great guest to have. Now, also, Abdullah, the other question I want to ask you is, do you know when you go in Dubai Mall or somewhere, and when people, like you just said, they wear oud, you can smell it, because you're such an expert. Do you know what oud they're wearing? When you're around people, can you tell from their smell?
In all fairness, it's very difficult.
To smell?
Because, to tell which kind of oud they're wearing.
Yes.
So there are two parts to it. One is, yes, we could tell, or rather I could, and I'm not an expert in oud as much as, let's say, my father.
Yes.
He's considered, we have now coined ourselves as king of oud, because people used to call us that always. They're like, Ajmal, you're king of oud. So we said, why not own the title? My father would be able to tell far better than I would. My cousins who are directly involved in that part of the business, the more traditional side of the business. I could tell, for example, the origin of the oud. Is this Indian? Is this Far Eastern? Stuff like that. But can I identify just by smelling it that which jungle it comes from and which region in Indonesia or Thailand? I would find it a bit difficult, to be very honest with you. Having said that, yes, I could tell you that this would be a very good quality. Therefore, it would probably be dearer, quite expensive. So yeah, you gauge. The other thing which makes it even more difficult in this part of the world is because people don't wear oud only by itself.
Yes.
Okay? So people have been layering over here for decades. Even before I joined the business, I remember people, my uncle's friends and father's friends, they would always use oud, but they would always use other things with it. It was either oils or concoctions they made themselves,
Like a cocktail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the concept of layering, which is now a big thing in the West and what have you, the population here have been doing it for, I'm sure it must be century plus, because they've been using perfumery. The perfumery is so ingrained, and as you know, it's a very important part of Islamic culture.
Yeah.
So it's been there for centuries, right? It may not be in the same format as it is today, but it has been there for an extremely long time. So when you have, and that's what makes it difficult, because today, typical, even a man who does less amount of it, it's a ritual. So you've got the incense that is there in the kandora. It is the oil, let's say the oud is also worn, then layered with some other, let's say it could be a Western type fragrance. It could be more than one Western type fragrance. I know so many people who wear 3 layers and also oud. So it's so difficult to really tell, identify. But if you go close to them, so as you know, Arabic culture is when you meet, you greet itself with kisses on either side, and they put a little bit on the agal, the black band that they wear, and you're able to smell it. That's when you can identify a little bit. They also burn the oud in the gatra, so you'll be able to identify some amount of that as well, because the notes are considerably different. So if you ask me what kind of oud do I prefer the incense, which is the Indian incense, whereas I prefer the Far Eastern oil, say for example. But we also do blends.
Nice.
So some of the blends that we have are some of the favorites that we have.
Because I was reading somewhere, Abdullah, by that it's a status symbol. Do you know, like people might wear expensive watch to show that they've got wealth. So the stronger the oud, it shows that the more wealthy you are. Do you agree with that? Or not?
It is, but it's not necessarily stronger, because there are a lot of people who do use. The problem with our businesses is very, very easy to cheat customers. You've got raw materials nowadays that you can put in a oud composition, and unless even people like us, even my dad, it'll be very difficult to tell that it's absolutely pure until we put it. So we've got the top technology when it comes to oud. In fact, we have got patents in 7 countries for artificial inoculation. We were the ones who came up with that technology first. And we have all the tests and everything. So until you put it into the GCMS machines, you really don't know the purity. So they can put ingredients that will make it stronger, but does it make it better? Not necessarily. It's not purer. So you might like the olfactive value, but is it really valuable? Not necessarily. So saying that it is a very strong oud doesn't mean anything, to be honest. It's only when you buy from a brand that you trust, you know what they're saying can be held true. The other thing is, a lot of the Arabs who know, because these guys start using oud since they were like 10 and 12 in its pure form. Huh?
Yes.
And they're able to recognize that there is a good quality, it's the notes that determine the quality, not necessarily the strength.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, now what sort of price range are the ouds? What's the most expensive oud that Ajmal Ouds, which is the biggest in the world, has ever manufactured, the most, and what's the cheapest? What's the price range?
So it can start with something as low as, let's say, so we do tola, right? Yes. Tola is basically a measure which is typically used for gold, and it's used for perfumes as well in this part of the world. A tola typically is 11.62 grams, whereas now UAE government has capped it at 10 grams. We still do 12 ml because, that's come down from our generations. So let's say something like for 200 dirhams, 250 dirhams, you can get a tola. But again, I have to say that it wouldn't be 100% pure. There would be compounds and what have you, and the quality, obviously. And then the most expensive that I have personally put out there, and it was a very limited edition, strictly 10 pieces only. and the most expensive is 750,000 dirhams.
Wow.
It was 20 ml of the oud, and it was my mother's, Allah yarhamah, God bless her soul, it was her collection. It was close to about 50 years old.
250,000 dirhams.
750,000 dirhams. And
That's about 140,000 pounds or something.
Yep, that would be
And
the
people
case.
buy
And
that.
it was, we've sold 9 pieces. I've kept 1 piece as a memento.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'd like
the-
to see that. I want to see that.
Yes, inshallah today I can't because it's
Yeah.
kept elsewhere. It's also the packaging as well. It's not just the fragrance, obviously. It's the packaging. It's got 140 carats of diamonds and black diamonds. It's got the flag of the UAE. It's got emeralds and rubies and stuff
So
like
what
that.
sort of people buy that? For £140,000 perfume, you have to be a billionaire.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, I can't name them obviously,
yeah.
but they were high net worth individuals, not necessarily only from the UAE, but they were all from the GCC.
Wow, you could buy a car. Some people can buy a house, so that an apartment you can buy in Dubai.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So they must have a lot of wealth.
But the idea is that there are those discerning high net worth individuals. Do they use it? I don't think they use it regularly. They are collectors.
Is it like a showpiece?
It is a showpiece. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the entire packaging is very elaborate. It's a falcon made out of Murano glass, okay, and it's got the colors of the UAE because at the end of the day we are an Emirati. I recognize ourselves as an Emirati and very proud to say
You look
Emirati
like
brand.
Abdullah Bhai, you look like one as well.
Alhamdulillah, I'm
But you don't look
happy.
Indian. You don't look Indian, you look Emirati. handsome.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
You're a handsome man.
I'm very. Thank you. Jazakallah khair. That's a good start to the day.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not that it makes a big difference to me because whether I'm Indian, I'm Emirati, I'm what have you. As long as your values are in place, you're doing a good job. It's all. That's all. And you're a good human being. That's
the
what
most
counts.
important thing.
Really.
Ikhlaq, good being a good human.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
And so the packaging is very elaborate. The bottle actually is encased in the hood. So when you see falcons, they put that hood on top of
Yes.
them so that they don't see until they need to go hunting or they put it on a flight. So that hood is the encasing for the bottle.
Right.
And on that is all the precious stones and it's gold and what have you. So that's what adds to the value because just saying this is 20 ml of 50-year-old blend of oud doesn't account for anything.
Yes.
And frankly, to me, it wasn't about the amount, it was the pride. And number two, it was the emotion behind it because that oud was collected over the years. My grandfather, when he was in business, and my mother, when she got married, he would give her these little gifts. Every time there was a purchase, he got something, he thought it was nice, he would give it to her a little bit. And that's what actually accumulated over the years. And then she passed, and then, I came up with this concept. And it was actually done for an event which the Abu Dhabi Duty Free, the operator is called DFS. This was quite a few years ago. They had, and they only invited absolute top-end luxury brands to do something very, very special. Either it was a one-off or something. So almost all the brands did bejeweled packaging and very, very special things. Stuff like, bottles that were created by special artisans and what have you. Almost everybody had them with jewels on it, etc. The prices were quite high. Ours, if I remember correctly, I think ours was second highest, if I'm not mistaken.
Has any billionaire ever contacted you and say, make me this particular oud and I'll give you $1 million dirhams per bottle or something? Does that ever happen? Because Dubai has obviously got a lot of wealth. There's lots of millionaires, billionaires coming from all over the globe.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever asked for a bespoke order from you?
Regularly, all the time. But it's not oud.
Yes.
Oud needs to be a part of the formulation. As I said, we don't do only oud anymore.
Yeah.
Oud has now become a fraction of our business, right? It's everything else that has now become the larger part of the business. Oud, in terms of its contribution towards the overall business, has become much smaller because obviously now we're growing in other countries. Earlier, you only had Arabs as clientele. Today, Arabs represent less than 40% of our clientele. Now we're international. So obviously, it's not just Oudh, but many of the requirements or ask of many of such individuals and customers are, of course, they're all high net worth, obviously, but they're also because they're into the passion for fragrances. They want something which is a one-off, their own. But many of them from the region, they actually gift them as well.
Yes.
But they will, so obviously I can't name them, we can't sell them. So we do it regularly. The only thing is the person needs to be passionate, involved, and needs to give time.
Yes.
Because we don't do, if it's a bespoke, it can't be done yesterday, right? I mean, the shortest time we've been able to do something that the customer really liked and then finalized it was, I think, about just between 5 and 6 months. Normally, it's a year.
How many pieces?
So normally it doesn't work with pieces. So what you do is you say, all right, we'll develop something for you. So within the price, there is X amount of kilos that goes. So it's not sold in bottles, it's sold in kilos. And then and most of these people don't want you to bottle them in branded bottles per se. They wanted very special, but very simple bottles. Because the kind of people that they gift it to, also, of course, their insignia would be on it. So it would be a simple bottle. But typically what we propose and most people like is either they would have some sort of a crest. So let's say clients from UK or Russia. Russia is big with this. Russians, at one point, I'll tell you about a very interesting brief I had as well from a Russian billionaire. And they have their own sort of, they've gone into personal branding. Yes. I'm sure you know that.
Yes.
So they put their own name or their family name or whatever, and then they have it. The other one that we do quite often is weddings. So it became very popular for the bride and groom to have their own sort of emblem or with their initials, and that would be on the bottle. We couldn't get into too much detail because one language was a bit of a problem, but then of course we had a translator, so that is taken care of. But more than anything, he wasn't able to articulate. He wanted something very special. For him, I won't name the brand. Some of the top luxury brands, he called it mass market.
Yes.
So I was like, first of all, I was stumped that how do I satisfy somebody who calls these brands mass market, right? So I realized its substantivity is what he's looking for, So we needed to go through an educational process for him to realize it's not the end itself, it's the process, it's the raw materials we're going to use, the story behind the raw materials. So we used a lot of very limited edition raw materials. Jasmine that is produced like 16 kilos a year, rose which comes from India, which is produced like 15, 20 max kilos a year. So it was that sort of thing. And the process was very, very interesting. He loved it. But to come back to his original brief, he said the 3 things that he loves in life, apart from money, of course, is wine, guns, and motorcycles. So it was a combination sort of these 3, and cigars. Yes, sorry, 4 things. So it was, elements of wine, gunpowder, the metallic part of motorcycles, the smoke that comes out of it, the cigar, the tobacco aspect of it. And then even within tobacco, there are different types of tobacco. People who smoke, are you a smoker?
No.
No? So people who smoke would be able to appreciate this. The first time when you open a packet of cigarettes, there is a specific smell of tobacco. But then when you actually take it out and you smell it, it's different. When you burn it and you smoke it, there is a certain different smell. The aroma of cigars is very, very different from when you smell it unburnt to when you smell
Yes.
it burnt. And last but not least, how does cigars smoke smell on a shirt when you smell
Yes.
smoked one and you left it?
Yes.
So a lot of these experiences we went through and stuff like that, and we created something really, really good. He still, and this was over 13, 14 years ago, and we still have to, keep refueling him, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. So those customers must be rare, though, Abdullah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they're not. They're far, few and far between.
yeah.
And more, we are being very sort of selective about it because it takes a lot of time. Also, in the beginning, when we started doing it, there was a lot of people who got the project started, and we wouldn't do an official contract. We wouldn't say pay us X amount down payment so that the efforts are sort of taken care of initially. And then we got people who would get something, maybe a first round done, and then they would be like, oh, I changed my mind and what have you. So one was that. The other thing is that we become very selective because we are focused on growing our brand.
Yes.
And this really takes a lot of time of our own perfumers
Yes.
and our perfumers that we work with. And perfumers that you work with, eventually they want to see an order. Also, these numbers are not very big. They're never very big, right? You start with, let's say, 10 kilos of something. And if you work with some of the top houses in the world, the minimum quantity has to be 25 kilos of oil, minimum.
Yes.
And that too, they're doing favors for us, for example.
Yes.
So utilizing the talents of a master perfumer becomes very difficult. And there's only so many times you can ask for favors,
Of
right?
course. And
So
you
if there is some royalty, for
Yeah.
example, very, very high ranking royalty, then we would do something,
Yes.
perhaps something special. Today we've got somebody coming in this afternoon. I don't know, it's more of a visit, but you never know. I mean, they might turn around and say, I want something special.
How many components go into making one oud?
Again, you see, when you say oud,
Yes.
for us, oud means that one ingredient,
Yes.
the oud, that's it.
Yes.
But globally now, as I said,
Yes.
oud fragrances become a nomenclature. If it has oud could be just one raw material amongst 70, 80, 100. Or maybe if it's just a marketing nomenclature from a brand, it might not even have oud in it because it's very trendy to have the name.
Yes.
But nowadays what's happened is that accords, which are leathery, rosy, saffron, tobacco, these kind of accords are now also considered as oudi, whereas there is no oud in it. There's nothing wrong with utilizing the terminology, but at the same time, I think it's also quite misleading because imagine since we started our conversation, you've been referring to that as oud, right? But for us, oud means oud, pure, okay? And even if it's a blend of different qualities or regions or origins.
Yes.
It's not a blend of, so when our customer, typical core Ajmal customer, and if we say something oud, it's got to be oudi,
Yes.
right? Either it's pure oud or it's predominantly oud. And then we've used, so a formulation could be, a simple formulation could be anything like 8 raw materials. A complex could be 200 plus raw materials. It all depends on the brief, and it depends on how the perfumer is conceiving the fragrance. Very much like cooking, You can do a simple butter chicken.
Yes.
Because I think butter chicken, like everybody knows, even your
Viewers,
everybody knows.
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody knows butter chicken. Butter chicken can be quite simple,
Yes.
but it can also become quite complex. You ask a Michelin star chef and they will, add a few touches of this, that, and the other. And I have friends who are very much into cooking and they actually turn it into something else. And yes, in fact, I have a friend who made a butter chicken and actually put truffle in it. And it was amazing, but it was not authentic as such. It was brilliant. But if you said, if you gave it to somebody in India who doesn't know what a truffle is, they'll say, And if you said butter chicken, they say, no, this is not butter chicken.
Yes.
So that's how it works, to be honest.
There's lots of
Perfumery is
fusion.
very...
So there's lots of fusion, like fusion cooking.
It's all about fusion.
Yeah.
It's all about fusion. Perfumery for the layperson is exactly like cooking,
Yes.
right? You start off a chef or a cook, they know that what we want. So let's say I'm the customer. So the customer could be the brand or could be the marketeer or could be the client. Says, I want, let's say, some dish, right? Something very, very unique or, something. The perfumer, like the chef, needs to know eventually what it's going to be in their head. And then they start working on it, depending on how complex they want to make it, how simple they want to make it. So if I said to my mom, God bless her soul, that look, today I feel like eating so-and-so, she'll make something which she knows is soul food, right? So because we've grown up with that. But the same dish, when we go to our hometown, if you go to somebody's home, they will make it far more elaborate. They'll put more spices in it. When I say spices, not necessarily chili, fragrant spices. They'll put things like cardamom, cinnamon. And honestly, I don't quite like it as much. But that makes it, in their view, it makes it more special.
Yes.
It's not as basic, but I would prefer the basic one. To me, that is the authentic. That's the original. So perfumery is exactly the same.
Nice.
So and more and more brands now are going more towards simplicity rather than complex. In the 90s and the 2000s, perfumers were creating these really complex formulations. Also because the raw materials have increased, Turn of the 20th century, you would have barely 100 odd raw materials. The first innovation was in the turn of the 20th century when the first synthetic molecule was created, and then it's just gone everything under the sun. So now there are thousands and thousands of raw materials available to a perfumer. So you use so many different notes trying to build a certain note. But I think now the trend is going back to simpler formulations. The consumer is also asking for simpler things.
And how long, when you apply your perfume, your Oudh, how long does it last? For example, if I went and got Chanel or Creed, that lasts a couple of days. How long would it last if I put it on my jacket? If I put it on the shirt or put it on my neck, how long does it last? Obviously, the body will wash off, but what about the clothes?
So on certain fragrances of ours on your clothes, if you hung it back in the cupboard, it's there for 2 weeks.
Nice.
Okay, but I can't guarantee every one of them would be the same. So for us to actually, for any project to finally come to the final selection, it has to last in lab conditions on a blotter and on fabric for at least 24 hours, right? And the reason I say lab conditions is actually on a lighter note. It's a bit like, so-and-so washes off 99.9% of all known germs. So it's a bit like that, it's your body has a lot to do with it, the weather has a lot to do with it, your environment you work in has a lot to do with it. Imagine you work in a place where people are openly smoking. You can't expect any fragrance to last that long. The fragrance will be there, but it will be topped with a lot of smoke. Or if you're a smoker, in Ramadan, for example, I can smell a smoker walking past my door, and I'm sitting at least about, say, 10 feet away, because your sense of smell is heightened tremendously because you have not eaten anything for a few hours, you've not drunk anything, you're in a very neutral environment in your head. And of course, for us, smelling is second nature, right? So you already, all the time, instinctively, you're evaluating the smells of the air and the environment. Like most people don't recognize, but every city has a smell of its own.
Yes, it does.
So,
you go to Bombay, it has its own smell.
Yes, absolutely.
Delhi has its own smell. Dubai has its own smell. And now, Abdullah, by another few questions. Number one, do you know a lot of marketing perfume companies, they use celebrities?
Yep.
So they might get Johnny Depp, like Dior might, and say, you're our poster boy. What celebrities have you ever worked with, and you collaborated with them, and did that really help your sales, or was that more of a kudos thing?
Frankly, we don't have any celebrity endorsements. We don't do them till now.
Have you done anyone recently?
No, we've never done it. In fact, the untold stories, our celebrities were the perfumers.
Right.
So if you look up the entire concept of untold stories, was the stories told by the perfumer, because they never get an opportunity to tell their story. And my brief was an open brief. Do whatever you like, no budget, okay? But you have to tell the story of it. So they took a raw material, something that is very close to them, and they created the fragrance on that, and they told the story of it. So to me, they're the unsung heroes in that sense. Will I use an endorsement in the future, celebrity? Yes, of course. I mean, I think it is the most widely accepted form of it. But having said that, given the fact that, globalization now is so big, so earlier you had one celebrity that could be accepted around the world. Now every country has their own celebrities as well. Yeah. And they are far bigger than, let's say, even a Hollywood or a Bollywood celebrity. Yeah. So I personally think that if we go down the celebrity route, we might have to do one who would probably be big in the West. We'd probably have to do one which will be Bollywood style, because it's a huge, huge market. So yeah, I mean, am I for the idea? Yes, I'm for the idea. But I don't believe we've reached that level yet, number one. Number two, let's face it, budgets are not the same as something like a Dior who can afford a Johnny Depp. I mean, he's everywhere, right? I mean, Sauvage as a brand is everywhere. So amazing, amazing marketing. And it's just absolutely spot on, the whole thing. So I think in a few years' time, yes.
I think a good celebrity for you would be someone like Virat Kohli, Indian, and he's well known around the world for cricket.
Sure. Again, we'll have to do a lot of evaluation, whether he is. What are you doing next year?
I'm not big enough. When the podcast gets bigger, then
well, there you go. Yeah, we'll have you sitting, looking sharp.
But no
in fact, we have a reference called Aristocrat. You'd be perfect for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You've got that, mashallah, that look.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. So, Abdullah Bhai, what I want to ask you now, young entrepreneurs, anybody who wanted to go into business, what advice would you give them? So, people who are watching this around the globe, what advice would you give to people who want to enter enterprise now? First of all,
enterprise in perfumery or enterprise?
Just generally both.
Okay.
Because this is an entrepreneurial podcast.
Okay.
So what would you basically advise somebody from your experience? I think entering into perfumery will be hard right now, because you've got those years. If you're someone to go into, it's been happening from centuries, ancestors for you. So for you, you've got the upper hand. It's like somebody going to real estate. It's hard for them to go into development if you don't have access to money. So they could become an agent. But with you, what advice would you give people, A, entering into perfume, or B, entering into a business generally? Okay.
So let me answer the first one, the easier one for me, which is the perfumery. And I'm not saying this because, we're afraid of competition. Competition is everywhere. And it's good for business, actually. But I would say if there are young people who are interested in going into perfumery, I would say think really, really hard. There are thousands, literally thousands of brands that are being introduced year on year, and almost 70% of them perish in a year's time. It's an extremely competitive. You need to be very, very smart, very passionate, and I would actually say very lucky to actually succeed in today's day and age. You need a very strong story. This is the reason why a lot of the perfumers themselves are launching their own brands, because they have a very good story. They have a very strong story. Yes. But eventually the idea is that they want to create a niche brand and sell it to one of the bigger groups, right? If that's what you want, yes, it can be done. It's very time consuming. You'll take a decade to create something. Opportunities for distribution is very, very limited because there's only so much space in, let's say, a Selfridges or a Beaumarchais or a Bloomingdale's. They can't give opportunity to everybody. They're obviously looking for brands who can bring in and add value to the space because space is expensive. So in fact, and as it's funny you asked me that, because yesterday my sister called me and she's a teacher, and one of a fellow teacher's son, he's just turned 18 and he wants to get into the perfume business and he wanted to get something created by us. And of course, we don't do contract manufacturing. But I also said that, you know what, ask him to think long and hard before getting into it, because it's not that capital intensive, but the success rate is very, very low for new brands.
Yes.
For new brands. I mean, we are now looking at expansion because obviously regionally you've reached, I won't say we've reached, what's the word? What's the word when you can't grow? Like, I forget the
What
term.
do you mean?
Sorry?
You can't grow, what do you mean?
Within the region, so you become like...
you maximize the region.
Yeah, there's a word for it. I can't remember. I think it starts with an S or something. Anyway, so now we're looking at global, because globe is the world is your oyster. So perfumery, think long and hard. Business, I think business is something which both, I think, being an entrepreneur myself, I encourage anybody who's got an entrepreneurial streak or a thought or a passion, I encourage them, including employees of mine who want to go into business. I always encourage them, because I think, and Islamically as well,
Yes.
you know that, you know, doing business is considered a very, I don't know if I can use the word pious.
Oh, yeah.
The word was stagnated. Stagnated is the word I was looking for. You know, the region has become, it's so chock-a-block with so many brands. You go to any mall, there are 40, 50 brands right there. And these are with their own kiosks. Forget about the ones inside a multi-brand store.
Oversaturated.
Saturated, yeah. So as far as getting into business, I won't you know, use the cliche terms of hardworking, honesty and stuff. It's a given, right?
Yeah, that's standard.
That's standard.
Yeah.
I would say today's day and age, getting into entrepreneurialism, you need to have really two things need to be very, very important in my thinking. One is clarity of thought. Okay, you need to be very, very clear about the business you're getting into, and given the fact that there is so much exposure and data out there and information, your planning needs to be as detailed and as granular as possible. Because let's not forget, you're not the only person thinking about that business around the world. There are God knows how many individuals thinking about the same thing, and they're probably getting into it far deeper. And the data is available. They don't need to go running around places, you know, a few clicks and you've got it. Everything is available to you, right? So you need to be very, very sharp about that. And last but not least, you need to be very cognizant about the money you spend. Because I think today, the expense is far more important than the sale and what you'll get back.
Spending in the business world, in your business or in your personal life?
No, in your business.
Yes.
Personal life goes without saying. You need to be a little more modest at that time, right? Because you want to build something.
Yeah, of course.
Unless, of course, you come from a trust fund kid or something like that, and then you want to do it, so you can. But I'm talking about an ordinary person who's either borrowing some money, friends and family, or has some savings. You need to be extremely cautious. The days of trial and error has reduced and diminished. I don't think it is gone. You can, of course, try. But if you are a first time, a first generation, I'll be honest with you. I have a much easier time than my grandfather did, than my father and uncles did. Today, I have the luxury of trying and being able to fail at something and still not be hurt, right? Because, of course, we'll be cautious, we'll do it small, and then we grow. But somebody who's a first-time startup, You don't have that luxury. You need to be extremely, extremely careful with where you're putting your money. And the beauty is, if you're smart enough, there are many people who can help you get there.
Yes.
Unlike earlier, where you couldn't go to many people wouldn't support you. Today, I mean, figure it, like I was in university, I used to joke with my friends, and this is real, right? I used to say, imagine if I could do a business with no money. And we all used to laugh about it, including myself. People are doing it today, right?
Yes.
You've got an idea, you go and you pitch it to investors, you pitch it to banks, you pitch it to crowdfunding individuals. You make money. You create the product, you sell it, you grow.
Yeah, but they take part of the action. If you've got the money yourself and you've got the vision, you can fund yourself.
Of course, but having said that, those are far fewer, right? But the larger majority, if you see anywhere in the world, are the guys who want to start off, but they don't have the funds for it. But if you've got a good idea, a good plan, and if you've got, I truly believe that even if I had the money, today if I wanted to do a startup, alhamdulillah, I'm in a very, very good position where I could take money from the company, pitch the idea to the company. Because today we're not just a perfumer, by the way. We have multitude of businesses, and we're growing into that as well. So I can go and put an idea to the group that this is a new thought, we can put a plan. I have that luxury, but honestly, I would rather, and I've done it, I would rather pitch it to outsiders to see how they react to it first. Do they buy into it first? Of course, the company will be one of the people investing in it, but I would go to people I respect, people I think are very successful, not just business people, people who are professionals, right? And especially people who are very, very difficult. So I'll pitch it to them.
Yes.
Because they are great at poking holes in good ideas.
Yes.
Right? That's what they do.
They find faults with everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if they can do that, they're only making your plan better.
Yes.
And sharper.
Exactly.
And then you can go and try and do that. If you have access to people like that, you're very fortunate. You need to go to them. You don't want people who will listen to it and say, oh, fantastic, Abdullah.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, it's a great idea. I would always think, you didn't. If somebody doesn't say anything bad about your idea, there's something wrong with it, I think.
So it needs to be critiqued, it needs to be cross-checked.
Absolutely, absolutely. One day, I mean, I learned this very, very early on. There was a gentleman, friend of my father, who was coming, and I was sitting there in the room, and they were just generally just speaking very high, and you know, things like how great this, that, and everything. And my father was a very good friend of his, so he could be very candid with him. So he said, listen, my bank account tells me how good everything is going. Tell me what's not going good.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's the important part. That's the one I need to know. That's the reason every mail with a complaint that comes into our site, I will go through it. I make sure I look at that.
Nice.
And do something about it, because that is the most important thing. You're doing well, alhamdulillah, your car and your home and everything else talks about it, right?
Of course.
So, yeah, I think the harder it is for a person to start, the better it is in the long run.
Because that's very interesting advice, especially for the young people listening, to get the idea, get the vision, and then get it cross-checked by people, get it critiqued, because that'll only make the plan stronger and make it foolproof, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the beauty again is, unlike the olden days where access to people like that was very difficult, I know of people, friends, people who have been successful in life, who, when approached by young people, actually give them time. I mean, I don't consider myself as greatly successful, but I'm actually meeting somebody in the first week of Ramadan who himself is a business person, a startup, okay? But he has been a professional. Now he's moved into entrepreneurialism. I don't know where he got my number from. He called me. I was in Thailand recently. And he just said, listen, I'm not calling for any business. I just think you guys have done well. I've been following you. I would like to meet with you and just, you know, run some thoughts about my business.
Nice. That's nice of you to give time.
No, but because I think it's in a way, I feel it's also a service. God has blessed me with all this, right? With a little bit of intellect, with a lot of success, with my family, with everything around. Why not share the thoughts?
Good.
Because I believe truly that, as we believe in Islamic as well, that if it's yours, nobody can take it away
I
from
totally
you.
agree. And also, I believe, Brother Abdullah, if you help someone, God will help you.
Exactly.
But 2 or 3 times in my experience, Abdullah, I've asked people, I'm doing some business with my niece, and she wanted to open this children's care home. And I asked those people who did it, oh, how did you find a manager? Friends of mine, how did you recruit this person? That just dropped them a message.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, just gave me some BS excuse, so we're not allowed to tell. Some people ignored. In my head, I thought, that's not Islamic. And also, you're not very helpful. Somebody asked me anything, like if you ask me, where do you get this shirt from? Where do you get your kitchen from? Where do you get your car from? Where's the best place to find a builder? I'd be very helpful like you.
Yeah.
Some people aren't so like that. I disagree with that.
I think it's very small-minded, to be honest. I mean,
Rizq is written.
Yeah, risk is written,
Yeah.
and you're very insecure, in my opinion. You're very insecure if you're not able to. Of course, you don't tell your trade secrets.
Yes.
Right. I'm not going to tell people about my formulations. In-house raw materials.
Yeah,
that's common sense.
Yeah.
But I would not hesitate to guide somebody. I have friends in the same business, and we openly talk about stuff. I tell them, I guide them if they are ready to go international. I tell them you can. In fact, I have actually told people who are from the same region of ours in the business, and I say, you know what, I think you need to up the ante when it comes to your brand. You need to invest in your brand. This is what you can do. Because I truly believe, nobody can take away what is written for me. As the Arabs say, it's in your maktoob.
Yeah, it's in your, there's a hadith, so I can talk about it. If something's meant to be for you, even if it's under a mountain, it'll make its way to you. And if it's not meant to be for you, even if it's between your lips.
Between your lips, you will not get it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm never afraid of guiding people in that. And there are a lot of people now, if you look for them, they do. In UAE, I know some really, really successful people who mentor people. Of course, the time is very, very tight. I have been mentored by somebody. I can't name these people because then they will have God knows how many people running to them. But they will give you 20 minutes of the time. But 20 minutes of that.
Yeah,
I'll give you an example. There is another gentleman from India who's in the similar, very close to our business. I'll tell you, I have learned from him than I have done in my, I would say, in 20 plus years of working.
Yes.
Because just 2 hours with this guy is like an institution.
Yes. And obviously you learn on the job as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That goes without saying. The other thing young people should not do, or rather should do, is preferably work with people who are not family members.
Yes.
Because family members tend to be, like in our family, we have a rule. It's an unsaid rule, but it's a rule. So we're a family business, right? So granddad started it, then there were 5 brothers who were running it, and now we are 9 third generation members in the family. No member of the third generation can work under their respective father. It has to be somebody else.
Yes.
And at some point, it also has to be under a non-family member. So I reported to 2 non-family members in my career.
Nice.
So it's very good to do that as well. For people in the family business, I think you should work with people outside the business.
It doesn't damage family relations then either.
That too.
Yeah.
And you know what? The worst thing I've done, of course, that this rule doesn't work for everybody. I've always lost friends if I did business with them. 100% till now. So I don't hire friends. I don't do business with friends.
Good.
So that's been my life lesson. But it works with a lot of other people. It works. I mean, so it's fine.
You have to do what works for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, Abdullah, you're the biggest oud supplier in the world. You said you have regions, shop outlets everywhere.
Yeah.
What's the best performing country you've got? Is it Dubai? Is it Saudi Arabia?
So it's UAE at the moment.
Yes.
Saudi is a close second, but they will outdo UAE by far very soon. Come
Is
on,
that because what they're doing in Riyadh?
well, it's all over.
Yes.
We've got 60 stores at the moment in Saudi, and the plan is to open about 300 in the next 3 to 4 years.
How many do you have in Dubai?
In Dubai, it's 57 at the
Do you have
moment.
one in Dubai Mall?
Yes, of course. We've got 2 in Dubai Mall, in fact.
Sure.
One is Ajmal,
Yes.
the regular one. It's actually just above Cartier.
Yes.
Very easy to find. And the other one is a brand called Eternal by Ajmal, which is our luxury brand. And that's very selective. Actually, we're moving now. We used to be in Perfumery & Co., which was at the top level of Dubai Mall in the Fashion Avenue, where all the high-end brands are, luxury brands, on the top floor. So they only kept select brands, niche brands. And everybody had a small little area. And now they're relocating everybody because some other retailer or someone has taken that big area. So we're going to relocate from there.
Where do you have the biggest sales in Europe?
In Europe at the moment, we're doing very well in UK. We're very selective with our distribution as well, but we are. Italy would be the next second, but you will be seeing a lot more presence of us, both offline and online, starting this year.
Good.
We're going very big online.
Yeah. So UK will be good. London, you should be there.
Oh, yeah. In fact, we're looking for a location in London, which will be our flagship store, inshallah, in London as well. Will it be profitable? Maybe not. But for marketing purposes, I think it's a brilliant idea. So already I've selected 4 places in America. Okay, so 4 stores in the US. UK will probably be, I don't know. At the moment, we're looking at the first and then see. But I mean, you know the business situation in UK at the moment. So we've delayed it till next year. But I've sort of identified areas that would be preferred.
I'll help you. I'm a real estate.
Yes, so I'll be giving you a call.
Yeah, but I'll say to you is go Oxford Street. Do you know what Arabian Oudh is?
Yes, I know.
On that same street where Selfridges is.
Yep, yeah.
And that's where it has a lot of footfall.
I know, but you know, I'm always skeptical about that. Do I want to be on a place where what's that other street? I forget where all the niche brands are.
Bond Street.
No, it's off Bond Street.
Sloane Street.
I think it's Conduit Street, if I'm not mistaken.
Conduit Street.
So, do I want to be there? Because you know how they say you're judged by the company you keep.
Yes.
Right? Do I want to be there, or do I want to be on Oxford Street, which has a mix of everything?
Yeah.
Of course, bless them, they're all doing well, I hope.
Yes.
But it's the first entry point, right? Where do you have yourself? Do I want to be in Champs-Élysées in Paris? I don't want to be on Champs-Élysées. I want my brand to be seen in an area where your top-end niche brands are there. And then you can go commercial. It doesn't matter. Anyway.
Then you can go to a place like Harrods, Selfridges, you have concessions.
Anyway, you'll get the concessions. Once you have that kind of presence, we're in talks with Harrods. In fact, another department store, I can't name them because we've not finally signed with them, already as good as closed. So we will be in these places, inshallah, sooner or later. We're the only brand that is available from this region in the majority of duty-frees and airlines. Nobody else is there.
Good.
We're inside airports. We've opened our first store in Muscat, duty-free. We are in active talks with 2 more. We're available in Heathrow, in Frankfurt. We're on British Airways. We're on Virgin on and off because they have a different policy.
What about Emirates? Because you're Emirati now.
I'm not. I'm still an Indian by heart. Will always be an Indian by heart. But so people say, what do you love more?
Yeah.
I say, you know, one is the country that I was born in. The other one is who adopted me. So I love them both. So yes, we're a very proud Emirati brand. We're not in Emirates. Limitations are there. As it happens, as of this morning, there has been some discussion about Emirates. We are a strong player in Dubai duty free. as a mainstream in the perfumery. So when you're traveling, if you go into the perfumery section, you will see we're there.
Nice.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. We're doing very well in there. We're growing. So our reach is now getting more international in terms of the methodology of the business that one does, right? If people ask me, where do you see yourself, right? I'm not foolish enough to say that I will be competing with the Dior's and the Chanel's in 5 years. Inshallah, you never know, maybe in 10 years' time. But I would say that I don't want to be a regional brand anymore. I want to be in between, closer to the international brands. I want to be in 110, 120 significant countries in the world. I want to be present in the known department stores and the perfumeries around the world. That will signify the success. Do I want to be sold everywhere? No. We're not a commercial brand. I don't ever want to become a commercial brand. I want to have that special something, that is not available here, but is available, in a specialized store.
You want a niche, you want to be unique.
I wouldn't say completely niche either. There is a term now called commercial niche.
Yes.
So it's in between of niche and being absolutely commercial. Nice. So somewhere in there, I think that's where the trend is going.
Nice. And also, just quickly, I'll touch on the topic. I'm a property expert.
Yep.
When you, obviously you already do property in Dubai, we touched on it briefly, but when you do have a store in England, when you make money, I'll help you get a nice distressed property in England.
No, thank you. I would love that. In fact, that would be something that I would interestingly talk about while you're still here. Maybe we can grab a meal at home, a very light meal, and just to get you started for Ramadan.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we'll chat about that.
And one other question in your experience before we wrap up, Abdullah bhai, if you could do something differently in your experience, I've been in property for 30 years, real estate plus, so I learned from my mistakes. What would you have done differently? You're a 52-year-old man who's very successful, the biggest oud supplier in the world. What would you do differently from your experience if you could rewind the clock?
So first of all, I wouldn't have told you my age, right?
You don't.
You just announced it.
Yeah, you don't.
No, all the pretty women would be like, no, on the serious side, the one thing, of course, there's been a lot of mistakes. My father always said that you don't become a businessman until you lose money. But the one thing, honestly, if I turned the clock back, I would do is I would work outside of the family business for at least 2 to 3 years before I joined. And I wanted to do that in all fairness.
In the same sector or a different sector?
No, absolutely different sector, completely different sector.
Right, just for experience?
Just purely for experience. I did work as an intern in Benetton. If you remember, in the 90s, Benetton was big, So I did work there. I was in the back, in the warehouse, and then I came into sales for a little while. And I enjoyed the experience, but I would have liked to have done a full-time job outside of the family business, because again, as I said, again, it has taken me longer to learn the same mistakes or learn from other people or from the way you're treated much faster, because they don't care who you are. But even though I started right at the bottom, by the way, when I came, I was not. But then you can't shift the fact that you are an Ajmal, you're a family member. You are always almost treated with kiddie gloves, especially our part of the world.
Yes.
In the Western world, they don't care, to be honest. And I think that is the right way to go. But it would have been far better. And now even Dad says, you know what, I should have let you do that.
Yes.
But then, I'm the eldest. They said we need help, we could do with more hands and stuff like that. So.
Good. But you've been a wonderful guest on the podcast.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
You're the CEO of Ajmal Group, and you're very humble, down to earth. So one message I'd like to give to everybody in life: whatever you achieve, however rich or famous you become, always be humble. Never let success go to your head.
Absolutely.
Because if you're humble, then God gives you more. That's my take on life.
Absolutely.
So
couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.